In this lecture, we're going to be talking about neural growth, increasing your neurons and the connection between them, and increasing all the neural networks that you have that are interconnected with the cortical map and, of course, the rest of the human body. And what this will do is that it will help you build your brain. When you don't work on these things, the older you get, the weaker your brain gets. And this is, of course, science. When we talked about elderly people and young people and how their brain develops in a different way, how when people age, their brain starts moving backwards instead of forwards. This is reality. But when it comes to neuroplasticity itself, there is no difference. Anybody can ensure neuroplasticity. Anybody can have new neural networks and new neural connections and new neural links. Not just young people, not just adults, everybody. And by doing that, you're increasing the size of your brain, you're increasing your brain power, your brain energy, you're increasing the brain cells and neural connections and the neural networks, as we said. And this is you increasing and building basically your brain overall. And the first exercise to do that can of course help a lot is intermittent fasting. You can create more brain cells and therefore improve your brain power. According to Dr. Mark Mattson, a professor of neurology at Johns Hopkins University, fasting has been shown to increase rates of neurogenesis in the brain. Neurogenesis is the growth and development of new brain cells and nerve tissues. And when we talk about brain cells and nerve tissues, we talk about neuroplasticity. I'm going to include an article that talks in details about intermittent fasting and how you can do it. There are a lot of different ways that people use. There are a lot of different methods to do this intermittent fasting. It can be fasting for 16 hours a day. It can be fasting 8 hours a day. It can be skipping a meal as an intermittent fasting. And of course, the article is going to guide you more through it. But for now, what you need to know is that not only does fasting increase your rate of neurogenesis, it also boosts production of an important protein called BDNF. BDNF has been hailed as miracle grow for your brain. BDNF has been shown to play a role in neuroplasticity, which allows the brain to continue to change and adapt. It makes your brain more resilient to stress and more adaptable to change. BDNF helps to produce new brain cells. It protects your brain cells and stimulates new connections and synapses while also boosting memory, improving mood, and learning. This one simple exercise that you can do twice a week or once a week or 3 times a week, and that just consists of you skipping a meal or you not eating anything for 6 or 8 hours. Keeping in mind that intermittent fasting doesn't stand in the way of your fitness goals. In the contrary, most studies found that it actually helps. So just go back and listen to all the benefits of intermittent fasting, and then decide if it's worth adding this as a habit or routine to your life or not. Now, moving on, we're going to talk about mnemonic devices. Mnemonic devices are techniques a person can use to help them improve their ability to remember something. In other words, it's a memory technique to help your brain better encode and recall important information. It's a simple structure that helps you associate the information to remember with an image, a sentence, or a word. If there are 2 pages that you need to memorize, and after memorizing, you feel that you're still not 100% sure of how much you will actually recall from the information that you actually memorized, and you decide to do a illustration, a drawing of the story. Then you look at the drawing and you memorize it. It's easier to memorize a few images in front of you, a few drawings, than to memorize 2 pages. But what these 2 images would do is every single time you forget something, you forget what's next, you remember the images, you remember the sequence of the story, and you're more likely to remember what part comes where. One of the most effective mnemonic devices can be mind mapping, which is also, as I said before, included in this course. Using these mnemonic devices will help stimulate your memory and your recalling ability. It will boost your creativity, which will overall increase the number of brain cells and neural structures that you have. Now, lastly, we're we're going to talk about some other techniques that can also help in terms of neural growth. First, expand your knowledge and information, which we already talked about before. And of course, this would help with your neural growth. It will add more brain cells and it will ensure more neural links and neural systems and networks. Another technique would be using your non-dominant hand. A lot of different concepts are related to this technique, coming from your comfort zone all the way to your habits and your memory. So when you use your non-dominant hand, you'll be boosting all the different concepts that we talked about before, and therefore you will ensure neural growth. And just a quick thought before continuing. Everything that we mentioned before would also help with neural growth. And the purpose of this lecture is to just pinpoint some information that are important. Even if there's a little bit of repetition, it's important for you to know these concepts and become aware of them, especially when I repeat how important some things are. And in this lecture, there are going to be just some techniques also that are not in other lectures and that are also really, really important for your overall neural growth. Third exercise is doing an abnormal action sequence. What that means is, try this. Take one hand that is tapping on your stomach and the other hand on your head moving in a circle motion. Or try moving one arm left and right, and the other arm up and down. Even if at first you find that it's a little bit hard, with consistency, you'll get to a point where you can do it easily. And at that point, there are a lot of neural growth and of course a lot of connections that form, a lot of neural networks that are interrelated with this action. So since it's an abnormal action, it's going to create new networks and new connections and ensure overall, as we said, neural growth. Moving on to the fourth exercise, solving a Rubik's Cube. Just by looking at it, you can know that this will ensure mental stimulation. It's not easy. It needs memory, it needs creativity, imagination, it needs very well understanding of what's going on, and of course, experience, because the more you do it, the easier it will be for you to solve it. Some people nowadays can solve it in 10 seconds. And why? It's because of consistency, of course. It's hardwired in their brain. They know the ins and outs of it. They know how to solve it. And even with their brain shut down, even with their eyes shut down, they can solve it easily. Imagine getting to a point where even if you're not looking at the Rubik's Cube when you're trying to solve it, just seeing it at the beginning and memorizing where each and every square of color is, you can solve it. And this is extraordinary memory. Now, moving on to the fifth exercise, which is having sex. Research found that having sex would actually ensure neural growth. It will make your brain increase in size and it will ensure more brain cells and neurogenesis processes happening, neural networks forming. Because of different reasons, including all the emotions that comes with it, including all the different stimulations that you experience when you have sex. The sixth technique is not just a technique, it's an entire concept that you need to be aware of, which is emotional intelligence. The more emotionally intelligent you are, the more control you will have over your emotions, and therefore you'll be able to prevent bad emotions that would kill your brain cells and reinforce good emotions that would actually help you develop your brain, get more brain cells and more neural connections. And lastly, the last technique is resting properly and avoiding restlessness. We all experience days where we feel restlessness. We're all over the place, we're so motivated, we want to do a lot of things. And then you go to bed, you barely sleep for 3 hours, and you wake up the next day and you're so tired, but you keep going back at it because you're restless. And then the next day you just crash. This is killing your brain cells. If you don't sleep enough, a lot of your brain cells will die. A lot of neural structures will start to dissolve and you will disrupt a lot of things in your mental structure. Scientists found that the more you age, the less sleep you need. But if you're 18, 19, all the way up to 30, 35, and you're actively working and maybe working out and all of that, you need at least 6, 7, 8 hours of sleep to keep up your brain's health. And with all the techniques mentioned in this lecture, this is where it comes to an end.